I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, September the 29th. Brought to you in part by Macrocin, by Mita. Pay for what you need, not for what you don't. Keep your cash, don't wait on rebates, and get about the same results you get with any telithromycin injection. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards there in Carthage, Missouri. You have another big sale for the Monday feeder cattle auction. They just keep coming. That's why it's the biggest auction in the nation, guys. They're expecting 8,500 head here on Monday. Going to be starting at 4:30 in the morning, and they don't have much odds. They'll be right on bunches here by 5:30 or 6 for sure. But that they get the bulk of the cattle moved through there and get the sale over before it gets late in the afternoon. This week, also a busy week at JRS. They are having a special cow sale on Thursday afternoon. It's one of those 4:30 in the afternoon starts. So I don't know if there's any other stockyards that would have two sales. Well, they have three sales because they have a cow sale on Wednesday too. But they have two sales starting at 4:30. One's AM and one's PM. But that special cow sale on Thursday starts at 4:30 PM. And that's October the 2nd, guys. So be putting that on your calendar. Fats and feeders going in opposite directions. There's lots of pressure on your fed cattle market with a lot of your cattle feeders in the northern plains being backed up with market ready cattle. The packers have slashed the slaughter. It's backed those cattle up quite a bit. Southern plains are depleted pretty much. They are really current, in fact running short of cattle. And it's not just because we haven't been getting any cattle in from Mexico. The Southern Plains buyers just haven't been stepping up to the plate and buying these expensive feedlot replacements the last several months. So they're running short of cattle. But the Southern Plains is now trading at a premium to the Northern Plains, even though most of the time we think that the better quality is in the Northern Plains. But you know, the bulk of the cattle are trading on some type of a formula basis anyway. But what I'm usually talking about is the negotiated cash trade, which we don't have near enough of. But if anybody in the Southern Plains is trading in a sweetheart deal and it's based off the 5 area weighted average, you're getting screwed, because the Northern Plains is sucking that down. I mean, we traded most of the cattle in the Southern Plains at 237, and your weighted average up through Thursday on live steers was only 232 and a half. So all those cattle that they're trading in the Northern Plains is sucking that way down. So like I said, I don't know if many of them are, but if you're in the Southern Plains of Texas or Kansas or New Mexico or Oklahoma, and you're trading off the 5 area, you're getting screwed. You need to do something about that. That's not a fair deal. This week we had a lot of talk about Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins. And you know, we didn't know too much about her when she came on with the Trump administration this time. We knew that she was a 4-H and FFA mom, so she probably knew more about what was going on than a lot of the agriculture secretaries that we get, but comes from down in Central Texas there. But I like her. I tell you what, she's just a lot like Trump. She's straightforward in everything that she does. I think sometimes the timing of her statements could be changed a little bit. I don't know if she's fully aware of how powerful they are, and how, you know, 1 or 2 words she says and the way she says them can send our futures markets in a swirl. But she put out a statement. It was actually on Sunday evening. You know, people knew about it early Monday. That was saying, you know, we're talking about the screw worms in Mexico, of course, but basically saying without saying that you know, it was going to be a long time before we open up that Mexican border to cattle. because she was talking about the case that they found just 70 miles south of the Texas border of screwworms there. And so, you know, we saw that huge run up, limit up feeders on not your current months, but all of your back months were limit up, which is 9 1/4. We saw that on Monday. Of course, that threw everybody for a little bit of a loop. And your feeders in your current months, they actually ended up being higher every day. But the back months that saw the limit up on feeder cattle futures, they kind of fell off later in the week. But the October contract that expired late last week, it couldn't do it because it had to, you know, had to converge with your index levels, and your index was higher every single day because we were selling feeder cattle in our auctions higher every single day. So you know, it was you know, you can just tell whenever Chicago wants feeder futures to be lower, but in all reality they can't be lower right now because of the way they're selling cash. And a lot of times we see Chicago wanting to push that market in a way that the real people out with the boots on the ground don't want it to go, but they usually win in the end. And they've seen that. We've seen live cattle futures this past week pushing lower and lower and lower with more pressure all the time. And indeed the fat cattle traded lower late in the week after all that pressure. But I tell you what, the calf run is here, guys. And from now going forward, pretty much all of your sale barns are going to have a higher percentage of calves than they do yearlings. And we're just about out of yearlings, especially grass yearlings, where you know, if you see them, you better sop them up because there's not going to be too many left. And most of the yearlings we see running through the fall and into the winter are going to be backgrounded yearlings out of a lot, which there's nothing wrong with them, but they won't feed as good as those that are coming right off grass, guys. But talk about your futures market for last week. October live cattle futures, Monday was up 357, and that was the day those back months of feeders were locked up the limit. But your live cattle futures October for Monday was up 357, which is a pretty good gain, and then all down after that. Tuesday down 155, Wednesday down 155, Thursday down $2, and Friday down $0.25, with October live cattle contracts ending the week at 231.80. That was down 177 for the week. December ended the week at 234.30, down 142 for the week. October feeder cattle, Monday was up 357 when the further out contracts were up the limit. But you know, when that spot contract gets close to where it has to converge, you know, it can't get very far. It can't go on these wild binges. It has to stay pretty close to the index, and so that's why it didn't go up any more than that. But then Tuesday was up 212, Wednesday up 52 cents, Thursday up a nickel, and Friday had to race up 295 to converge, and the September went off the board at 365.04, which is one that actually converged. But now we're into October, which is our spot month now, and so it's just right now. We're not going to have a bastard month, so sometimes we skip, but not this time. October ended the week at 357. That was up 290 for the week. November contracts ended at 354.47. Your grains, December 422 ended the week at 422 a bushel. That was down 2 cents for the week. Soybeans for November new crop ended the week at 1013 3/4, down 11 3/4 for the week. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December ended the week at 505 1/2, down 1 3/4. Your fat cattle trade up through Thursday of last week at 2 o'clock, when that's your deadline to put that information in. The packers turned that in. They had traded 38,300 head in your 4-area feeding region there. And live sales of fat steers and heifers ranged from 230 to 237 up to that point. That was $3 to $5 lower than the previous week. Weighted average on live steers, 230, 248, down 454. Like I said, that's tough. You know, when the market in the Southern Plains is 237 and the weighted average all put together is only 232 and a half, not quite. Of course, we don't sell any cattle in the Southern Plains to speak of, so it wasn't strong enough to bring that up anymore. Your dress sales, steers and heifers, range from 360 to 365, $7 to $11 lower, and the weighted average on dress steers 360, 497, down 595 compared to the previous week. On Friday, we sold some more cattle, no better. Iowa sold 1,600. They sold 19,800 for the week. Live sales in Iowa on Friday was 230 to 233. Dress sales at 365. Nebraska sold 4,400 on Friday. 20,450 for the week. Live sales on Friday in Nebraska 232 to 235. Dress sales at 365. Kansas didn't have any trade on Friday. They only sold 2,900 for the week. Texas didn't have any trade on Friday, and they sold 1,150 for the week. But the late week sales in Kansas and Texas, like I said, was 237. Box beef cutout values were lower, sharply lower, and we have lost a ton of ground on your box beef cutout values. Your weighted average on all of last week's sales for choice down 1284 compared to the previous week's weighted average at 376.60, and then your Friday daily afternoon quotes were another more than $5 lower than that at 371.43. Weighted average on all of last week's select sales 356.86, down 1105 compared to the previous week, and your late Friday sales there were more than $4 lower than that weighted average at 352.44. Your choice select spread on your weighted average was 1974, and all that information based on 669 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter for the week last week, 555,000 estimated cattle slaughter, actually 3,000 more than the previous week, but 62,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Therapies, they're one of our favorite advertisers, guys. That's that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven. Recently, on a feedlot test at the Texas A&M Research Lot in Bushland, Texas, that experiment station there, cattle treated with Therapies versus the control group, which they did everything exactly the same, just no Therapies. The cattle with Therapies, or were treated with that, averaged 15.6 pounds more carcass weight than the control group. The Therapies cattle had marbling scores that were over 26 points higher than the control group. It was 508 compared to 482. And the Therapies cattle had 7% more choice and prime carcasses. It was 90% choice and prime compared to 88, or actually 95% choice and prime Therapies compared to 88% on the control group, guys. And it had $90 more return on investment than the control group, guys. Only costs about $3 a dose, guys. You can't afford not to be using it. For more information, go to Therapies.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They're working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index based on an 800-pound cash auction steer late in the week, or ended the week at 367.08. That was up $8.93 for the week. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index ended the week at 365.04. I want to tell you about impressive consignment that is going to be at Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota. That's a Monday sale coming up right here today, guys. They got a good feeder cattle sale, and John Masson from Rock Valley, Iowa, he has got 715 head, big consignment of black steers. They're Western origin, they're double vaccinated, they're fancy, only lightly fleshed, and they have not been implanted, guys. They're going to weigh from 900 to 1,100 pounds. Be sure and get on, be watching. Make sure you're approved at Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing. Those cattle will be selling here today on Monday. And that's through DVAuction.com. Talk about your trends in your sale barns last week. Your feeder cattle started the week out $2 to $5 higher, ended the week $5 to $15 higher, just big gains. Calves were $5 to $20 higher, and those unweaned calves are selling just fine. I tell you what, I don't know that I would go to the trouble of weaning those calves. If you like the market, which I can't understand why you wouldn't like the market right now, bring them in as fresh off the cow as you can. Don't sort them off. Let them lay around a couple of days before you take them. Get them off the cow as close to the time you're going to sell them as you can. And hopefully you've already given them at least one round of the shots, red nose, black leg, and got them worm good. And they're selling just fine, guys. People want them. And so far, they've been, and it's not October quite yet, but so far, folks have been getting along pretty good with those fancy quality, reputation quality kind of calves, fresh off the cow, rather than the ones that have been short weaned or been weaned stale and sitting around. I realize 45, 60 day weaned calves are going to sell better, but you just don't ever see them. So guys can't put many of them together. They're having to buy those unweaned calves. Just make sure they're freshly unweaned, guys. Talk about your big sales late last week and over the weekend. Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska. They've been a DV auction broadcaster forever. They had a big sale. The quotes were higher. Not a lot of comparisons that they can make because one of the first big sales there, but the market was higher. You'll be able to see that. Burwell was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard Livestock Equipment stick-out sale of the day. You look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see they had a wide range of well-tested weights there. How about 206 head of 5-weight steers, average 532 pounds, with a weighted average price of $481.19. They had 151 head of 6-weight steers, average 622 at $428.54. 162 head of 7-weight steers, average 730 at $387.56. 197 head of 8-weight feeder steers, averaged 839 at $365.13. 184 head of 9-weight feeder steers, averaged 974 with a weighted average price of $346.97. All of these are very impressive, guys. They had 399 head of light 10 weights steers. They averaged 1028 with a weighted average price of $344.93. Now look at some of the heifers. 133 head of 4-weight heifers, averaged 462 at $462.80. 114 head of 5-weight heifers, averaged 543 at $429.47. 178 head of 7-weight heifers in Burwell, Nebraska, averaged 738 at $363.19. 596 head of 8-weight feeder heifers, averaged 847 at $342.33. And 240 head of 9-weight steers, Burwell, Nebraska, averaged 933 pounds with a weighted average price of $326.12. Give you several other individual quotes that were impressive all over late last week or over the weekend. How about Central Washington Livestock in Moses Lake, Washington? 81 steers weighed 530 at $470 way up there in Moses Lake, Washington. How about Manhattan Commission Company in Manhattan, Kansas? They sell 65 steers, weight 828, bring 372. How about Crawford, Nebraska, Crawford Livestock Market? My friends, the Robertsons there. They sell 140 steers, weight 761 at 388.50. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, and your Macrison, no BS, top quote for the day, indeed come out of Burwell, Nebraska, Burwell Livestock Market. It was 56 steers, weighed 606 pounds, bring 452.50. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.